Good day guys, it's Tadi, and this is the Flameblast of Celerity Totems build guide for the new PV1 league 3.27. So this new league seems to be very clear speed oriented. This is gonna be reworked breach, so we know that in order to succeed in the breach farm you need to be able to clear massive packs of monsters really fast, and this is what Flameblast of Celerity is really good for. I generally prefer playing spell totems, especially after playing a bit of a PV2 where we mostly have attack totems there only, except for one skill. So I really miss playing spell totems, and I want to focus on that, coming back to PV1 now. And even though we have a lot of different changes and buffs to wand skills, so I probably will want to play some wand ballista build later in the league, but yeah, I wanted to league start with spell totems, my beloved. In my mind, Flameblast of Celerity is second best spell totem after Stormburst totems for league starting. Stormburst basically has really high single attack DPS, so it's like great build league starts to progress to your 4 Void Stones as fast as possible with minimal gear progression. While Stormburst still, even though it has massive DPS, it still can clear maps at a decent pace. Where Flameblast is kind of like the opposite. Flameblast of Celerity can clear maps really fast, exploding packs quickly, but the single attack DPS is not so high. It's about 2 times smaller than Stormburst, so you can still clear bosses just fine, but yeah, mostly oriented on map clearing and breach farming, like with a new league mechanic. So I played this Flameblast of Celerity Totem build as my main build on the league start in Settlers League. It was about 1 year ago. That was very successful here in HSSF. I progressed to level 99. I was clearing a lot of T17 maps, like you can see on the video. I'm clearing Incinerate map here. That was actually the first time I was able to blast T17 maps that easily, because before I was mostly playing like Stormburst totems and they're not so great for T17 mapping, but because this build explodes enemies and packs so fast, totems don't die, totems can kill enemies before they get killed, so that works really well. So yeah, it's gonna be... I can expect it to be awesome league starts because of the new breach league mechanic for softcore trades, and this build is also obviously viable for solo self-out and hardcore. I'll be playing as FHC personally. Let's talk about... one moment, about Flameblast of Celerity and what's the difference to a normal version of Flameblast. So this skill gem is a transfigured version of the normal Flameblast. In order to get transfigured version, you can either purchase that on trade from other players, or you need to get it from the completing labyrinth, where you can get Ascendancy. In the final room, after you kill 3rd stage of Azaro, there is a font machine device that allows you to transfigure gems into a transfigured version of gems. So there you can obtain it. Flameblast of Celerity has 3 maximum stages. This is the biggest difference to normal Flameblast, where normal one has 10 maximum stages. So totems always have to channel to maximum stages before they can release and do damage with the explosion. And basically this skill allows totems to release way faster, because channeling to 3 stages is faster than channeling to 10 stages. That improves the clear speed on maps by a lot, and also it actually increases the single attack DPS 2 in comparison to normal version. For totems, this is the case, so we checked it in PvP multiple times. So this is a no-brainer, just better version of Flameblast skill gem for totems. And the way I scale damage on this build, let's talk about damage scaling, is maybe a bit unusual. So I used to play Flameblast totems a lot in the past, and I would usually go for like normal way of scaling it through fire damage, and just using, like, reserving my mana for auras, get some mana reservation efficiency and stuff like that. And in Settlers, like recently, like 2 leagues ago, I decided to try to play this build in a similar fashion like I played Stormburst totems, where I scale mana to do damage, and it actually works so much better. So the difference between like mana scaling and normal aura reservation scaling is pretty obvious to me now, honestly. We can utilize prefixes on our gear. So basically, your like gloves, boots, helmets, body armor, right? They can all roll mana on a prefix, and this usually we can't get really any damage from prefixes on our gear, but this mana on prefixes not only scales our hit pool because of Mind of a Matter Keystone, we take damage from mana, But it also gives us damage through Arcane Cloak skill. Arcane Cloak is like a duration guard skill that gives you extra buff, extra like shield, and flat light damage to your skills based on how much mana you sacrifice. So it feels really effective this way, and again, comparing to the normal scaling with through life and reservation, usually we have like when we reserve mana, right? We have about, probably one big damage aura for 50% reservation, something like Anger or Zealotry. Then we probably also have Skitter bots that can give shock to scale damage against enemies and chill for some defenses. And probably we also can have another like reservation aura by getting some extra reservation efficiency, something like Tempest Shield for block, or something else for defense scaling like Flesh and Stone. But when we go mana scaling, we can use the same big damage aura, 50% reservation, but we link it to Eternal Blessing support. And Eternal Blessing support actually has aura effectiveness, 24% increased effective aura. So our damaging aura gives us even more damage, and it doesn't reserve mana thanks to the support gem. Then instead of Skitter bots that apply shock to enemies, we have just lightning damage. So again, our Arcane Cloak through mana gives us a lot of flat lightning damage, and on this skill, on Flameblast, because it gives pretty like massive hit damage explosions, it applies very solid shock to enemies naturally. So you replace shock from Skitter bots with just lightning damage that you get from Arcane Cloak. And another defense you get just from raw scaling your hit pool. Normally when I play life builds, I get about 6.5k life, maybe 7k maximum. But when you go mana plus life scaling, you can have like way more. I have 6k life and 4k mana here, so my total hit pool is over 10,000. So this way it scales better. The only like drawback of this approach is that Arcane Cloak provides a lot of damage. Like I mentioned before, basically about 40% of our damage is lightning damage through Arcane Cloak, and 60% is the initial fire damage from the skill itself, from Flameblast. And Arcane Cloak is not permanent uptime. On this build, it's going to be about 70% uptime. So about 7 out of 10 seconds, Arcane Cloak is active and it gives you damage. But even though the uptime is not permanent, it still feels more beneficial and nicer to scale damage this way. And globally, how do we scale damage for totems is stats that you get for your character, the damaging stats that you get for a character apply to your totems. So for example, when I take these nodes, it says I get 20% spell damage and 5% cast speed. That means that my totems also will be doing 20% increased damage and 5% faster casting for them. So yeah, the idea for this build is scale both fire and lightning damage, and not try to focus on a single stat that scales only fire or only lightning. So we can scale basically crit chance, crit multi, right? It scales globally hits. It doesn't focus only on fire or lightning portion. We can scale area damage. It's because the Flameblast is area skill, so it does area damage, scales both types of damage. We can scale spell damage or elemental damage, right? It also applies both to fire and lightning. And we can scale a lot of cast speed, of course. So this skill scales really well with cast speed because cast speed allows totems to release faster, to channel to 3 stages faster, and basically cast speed not only scales damage, but it also scales clear speeds and quality of life and totems defenses virtually. Because totems can release faster and kill the pack of monsters faster, so totems take less damage. Like you take less damage as well if you want to. So cast speed is a premium stat in this build. You can't get enough cast speed, so just try to take as much as possible, and it's gonna be always good. And of course, we try to scale mana everywhere in our gear and on our passive tree to also get a lot of flat lightning damage from Arcane Cloak. So that's how we scale damage. And also another good mention is that, like I mentioned before, this skill, Flameblast of Celerity, is not that great at bossing, even though it can kill like map bosses just fine. Not as fast as Stoneburst though. But we can swap our one skill gem, Flameblast of Celerity, to Incinerate of Venting. Only one gem swap, and Incinerate of Venting does almost 2 times the damage. So Incinerate of Venting is I can show it here in PvP, I guess. Here, so in this PvP, Flameblast Totems do 6 million DPS, and if we switch them to Incinerate Venting, so I disable full DPS here, I enable these gems, and I go including full DPS, they do 10.6 million, so instead of 6, more than 10 million DPS. It's way nicer. It's almost as much damage actually as Stoneburst Totems, by the way. So you could consider doing this gem swap just for pinnacle bosses, right? If you plan to league start this build, like me, and you want to progress pinnacle bosses with it to get your 4 Void Stones, then probably fighting specifically pinnacle bosses for Void Stones you would want with Incinerate Venting. Using this skill for mapping feels horrible, though. I'm talking about Incinerate. Incinerate Venting has pretty weird AI with totems, so I would really recommend to map with Flameblast of Celerity Totems. This is the main focus of this build guide. Flameblast of Celerity is what we want. Let's talk about defenses of this build now. So in patch 3.27, Spell Suppression was nerfed. Spell Suppression used to reduce the spell damage taken by 50%, and now it only reduces spell damage taken by 40% after the patch, right? I'm still playing in 3.26 here. So this nerf is pretty annoying, because it makes our character basically less powerful, but it's not enough of a nerf for me to not go spell suppression. I actually tried to rebuild and not go suppression defense, but try to go spell block and attack block, because you would think that Templar is like very natural for me to scale block, right? Because we have a block chance at the start of the tree. But it ended up being still worse, even with nerf spell suppression. And generally, the reason why suppression works so well is, again, it's kind of like with mana. I mentioned before that mana can scale our damage just from prefixes on our gear, right? So spell suppression can also virtually scale our damage from suffixes on our gear. And normally you would not be able to get any damage modifiers on suffixes on like gloves or helmet or boots or body armor. So that works really well. Basically, when you scale block chance, you have to take most of this block chance from your tree. Maybe you could scale some block on your shield, but it's only one piece of gear, right? And you can get a bit of a block chance on body armor actually too. But that's about it. So you have to invest into block chance way more in your passive tree. Where spell suppression, you only need to invest only few points on tree to get spell suppression fully capped 100%. The rest of the spell suppression you can quite easily get just from your gear on suffixes. And this way it allows us to have more nodes on tree to spec into damage instead, right? We don't have to go for block scaling. So whenever I build through suppression, defense feels about similar, but damage you can get way more. So I can't not go suppression. I tried to, but it didn't work. It works way better with suppression. Then next defensive layer, and one of the most important one, is totems taunting enemies. So we have totem taunt mastery. Over here it says totems taunt enemies around them for 1 second when summoned. So you place a totem in the pack of monster. This taunt has pretty small range, but still quite a lot of monsters from the pack will get taunted on your totem. This taunt applies really quickly, but it only lasts 1 second. This is why we also use decoy totems. So decoy totems are way tankier for starters, right? For example, my normal flame totems have 2,600 life here, while decoy totems have 7,400 life, as you can see on tooltip. So almost like 3 times tankier, right? And decoy totems can apply taunt in way bigger range and for much longer, right? Basically for the whole duration of decoy totem existence. But the disadvantage of decoy totem though is that this taunt that decoy totem applies is a bit delayed, because you need to wait for totem to actually like fully appear, go through the animation of summoning, and then you need to cast the first taunt wave. We have a lot of cast speed, but still that's a bit delayed. So we kind of like combine the two taunts while we're mapping. This taunt is applied faster, but lasts short amount of time. So we just go through the map, we place totems, and then If the monster pack has like a rare or tanky monster or like red beast, we can also summon Decoy Totem somewhere to the side, away from damaging totems, right? Decoy Totem will taunt enemies away from your damaged totems and from your character, so your damaging totems will not get damaged and they will kill enemies safely this way. Another thing about taunt that sometimes people forget is that taunt debuff applies 10% less damage dealt to an enemy, to all the targets, except for the source of taunt. So basically, when we summon Decoy Totem takes as much damage as usual, but all the other sources, so our character and our damaging totems too, like Flameblast totems in this case, they take 10% less damage. So it's 10% more effective HP, basically, for our character. It's especially important in pinnacle boss fights, where your taunt actually is like virtually doesn't really affect the boss. Most of the abilities of pinnacle bosses are not guaranteed to be directed at the source of the taunt. But this debuff that makes it so that boss deals 10% less damage still applies to all the bosses in the game. So that's a solid defensive layer on top of normal taunting. Another defensive layer is just totem playstyle in general, right? Unlike some more active playstyle where you have to constantly like self-attack, for example, in order to deal damage. Here you can just summon totem and then you're free to do whatever you want, and mostly what you want to do is either pick up loot in maps, or when you fight bosses, you want to dodge abilities of bosses, right? You can run around, and that feels way safer as a result. Next, really massive defensive layer is we have 6 endurance shards. So we get endurance shards from Ascendancy and extra endurance shards from our rings plus 3. So 6 endurance shards, they were buffed like 2 leagues ago. They give both physical damage reduction and elemental damage reduction now. So it's 24% less physical and elemental damage taken. That's super fat defensive layer. Another defensive layer is physical damage taken as elemental damage. We can have these stats on our gear, on helmets implicit, and on body armor implicit mostly. We have physical taken as elemental, so this is additional physical damage mitigation basically, because you can mitigate physical damage with your elemental resistances this way. Then, of course, again, the defensive layer where we take Mind of a Matter Keystone, so it makes it so that portion of the damage is taken from mana before life. So overall, our hit pool is bigger than on normal life builds. We basically get our life plus mana as a defensive pool, hit pool. And another benefit of that is you kind of get double regen, basically, because when you take damage, both your life globe and mana globe goes down, and you have both life regeneration and mana regeneration, so you start regenerating kind of like twice as fast as a result, in comparison to what it would be if it was only life build, for example. Although, still, it's a totem build, and we don't really leech from our totem's damage, so recovery is not actually great. It's just... it's good against damage over time, and when you can't attack enemies, like for example when bosses have phases when you can't attack it. But yeah, still our only source of recovery is basically just relying on regeneration. We still have a decent amount of regen though, and just life flask. So that was all about defenses, and now we're gonna talk about PUB variations. So I just wanted to remind that there is this feature in Path of Building. At the top right portion of the screen, here you can see it now, there is loadouts. So I have 3 loadouts for this build. Of course, the link to Path of Building will be in the video description. You can check it out there. So Endgame is kind of like a default loadout that I personally follow, playing HSSF. And let's start, wait, by the way, let me switch to Flameblast back here. So yeah. I also have early maps laid out and high investment laid out. So whenever you change loadout, it changes your passive tree, it changes skill setup, it changes items and configuration. So yeah, early maps is basically something, it's level 80, so this is what you can expect to have when you progress through your initial atlas, around level 80. Initially we want to dual wield 2 wands, by the way, in the early maps, before we get the Shaper Influence shield with +1 totem on it. Then in endgame we switch to shield, and this high investment, basically the version of the build where if you want to invest like a lot of currency already in softcore trade build, because it will use quite a few different unique items that can be quite expensive. But you can see, as you can see, the damage scales from 6 millions on end game builds to like 23 millions, so almost 4 times the damage with this setup, with different gear and slightly different skills and tree. We're gonna talk about it later. I just wanted to remind about this feature in this portion of the video. We're gonna look at the trees and skill gems separately now. So yeah, let's talk about passive tree and Ascendancy. So the class that we're going to play in this build is going to be a Templar, and Ascendancy is Harfend. This is, in my mind, the strongest and the best Ascendancy to use for just almost every spell totem build, honestly, in PvE1. Harfend Ascendancy, every single notable on it is honestly really, really powerful and impactful. So this node gives huge totem placement speed and +1 totem, so it gives a lot of damage, getting extra totem. And totem duration also honestly feels nice, because I tried to play spell totems on some other classes like Chieftain, and it feels bad to have only 8 seconds duration of totems, seriously. Like 20 seconds feels so much better. So yeah, totem placement speed is also massive, because it's so much smoother to map when you don't spend too much like animation time summoning totems. Then this node gives 30% more damage and a lot of mana regen and life regen. Mana regen is especially important because we use Arcane Cloak, which like uses a lot of mana, and we need to regen this mana back fast, so this helps a lot with that. This node is super powerful. It gives perma endurance charges and power charges. Endurance charge is big defense, power charge is a lot of crit, so a lot of damage for the build. And this node is also huge damage, actually. It makes it so that Arcane Surge gives you more spell damage, and Arcane Surge effectiveness from tree, like for example we get some here and in some other places. So Arcane Surge effectiveness also will scale this more spell damage buff that you get from this Ascendancy node. So this ends up giving you about 40% more damage from this Ascendancy node. Every Ascendancy node really powerful, and this is the reason why it seems like Bloodlines, we don't need to use any on this build. So Bloodlines is like a new special Ascendancy feature that's introduced in 3.27 patch. And yeah, we are not going to use any on this build. You could think about it as a disadvantage and advantage at the same time. The advantage is that you don't have to try to kill some boss that it's going to be hard to get to, like find all in Delve, for example, to get an Ascendancy. That can take forever, so we can just have all the power of the build immediately. So on the passive tree, like I mentioned before, we focus on scaling both both life and mana, and also both fire and lightning damage. So here, there's a lot of passive trees here. There is leveling passive trees. We're going to talk about them later in the video, whenever we're going to be talking about leveling. But yeah, so in default, endgame passive tree, this is how it looks like. So yeah, we want to scale crit, so we get crit here, crit here. Something that scales both fire and lightning. 40% of damage dealt by this build is lightning damage, 60% is fire damage. We scale elemental damage, again it scales both fire and lightning. We scale spell damage, like for example here we scale area damage. Here and here we scale area of effect, of course, as well, because area effect increases the clear speed as well, faster. We scale also crit, elemental damage, spell damage. Yes, I think I talked most of that. And as a defense, we take a little bit of spell suppression here on this portion of the tree. And just mana naturally also works as a defense. Eventually we want to use Cluster Jewel over here. It can give Onslaught, which is 20% extra cast speed and 10% cast speed here after you place a totem for 4 seconds. So pretty powerful too. There is Charge Mastery here, which gives charge duration, which allows us to not care about frenzy charge generation. So we get perma endurance and power charges, but frenzy charge we have to generate somehow. So the way we do this is we have body armor with implicit that has gain a frenzy charge every 15 seconds. But because by default frenzy charge lasts 10 seconds, we need to increase the duration. So now it lasts 20 seconds with the Charge Mastery. So you have permanent frenzy charge this way as well. That's really good both for cast speed and for damage scaling. What else to talk about on the passive tree? Well, I think... Yeah, so Evasion Mastery gives you spell suppression when these pieces of gear, helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots, all have evasion rating, so we want to have evasion there in order to get this 15% spell suppression. So we want suppression to be capped by the time we get to like highest tier maps, to T17 maps. There's gonna be a solid defensive layer. Yeah. And later on we're gonna talk about leveling trees. The high investment tree has just a couple of extra jewel sockets, because with jewels you can scale damage a lot in softcore trades. So we're gonna take a look at this a bit later. Now we can switch over to skills. So what skill gems do we use in this build? Leveling skills we're gonna take a look later. The main skills though, so Flameblast of Celerity, again, better version of Flameblast. We want to get Flameblast of Celerity as soon as possible, but it's okay to level with normal Flameblast through the campaign, but I recommend to farm Merc Lab, the third labyrinth for Flameblast of Celerity. That's what I will be doing, and that's what I did in the practice run that I did yesterday actually. I got it after 10 Merc Labs, so it's not that hard to get it, but it's a blue gem, so you can get pretty bad RNG sometimes, and it might take too long to farm lab, but yeah, sadly we really want to get this version of the gem. It gives extra damage and extra clear speed, so really huge. Or just buy this gem if you play Trade Lake, right? Then Spell Totem support, of course. Critical strikes, critical damage. It's a crit build, so the supports are really good. Infused Channeling gives not only damage to totems, but also less damage taken to totems, so it makes totems tankier. That's nice. And Elemental Penetration support. So this support, we don't go with Fire Penetration, right? Because we scale both lightning and fire damage. Elemental Penetration works better. It penetrates both fire and lightning damage. But this support gem you can't get normally from vendor. In order to get it, you gotta go with the vendor recipe. So you gotta sell Replica Beater Dream and 3 level 20 support gems. Fire, Cold, and Lightning Penetration support. Replica Beater Dream, you can get this unique item from Heist, from Blueprints in Heist. In the final room, you can... spawn this item and Curated Display quite often. This is actually not that of a rare unique item to get from Blueprints in Heist, but it still will take a little while to farm it on SSF. But so yeah, we used only as a 6-link support. Support gems are listed in order of importance, by the way, here. So yeah, we use Elemental Penetration as a 6-link. If you don't have Elemental Penetration still, you didn't get it from Heist, but you already have 6-link, you can use faster casting support instead. Also, Heist gets some quality of life buff this league, so it's gonna feel a little nicer to farm it. Basically, you will not need to re-level your rogues anymore. They will immediately be highest level. And also, Heist will receive new room type, gold rooms. You'll be able to farm gold from Heist, and that's also quite beneficial. Then this skill, again, Incinerate Venting. Support gems are exactly the same, only one gem I change is Incinerate Venting here. So you can consider switching to this skill instead of Flameblast. It's a 1 gem swap for Pinnacle bosses. I'm gonna show again. So our normal Flameblast does 6 million sync attack DPS, and Incinerate Venting is gonna be almost 11 million DPS. So this skill is way nicer for bossing because it's just more DPS, but it's really not good for mapping. Flameblast of Celerity is way nicer. So again, for Pinnacle bosses, for Voidstone kills bosses, you might want to consider Incinerate Venting, even though I was killing bosses with just Flameblast anyway when I was playing this build in Settlers. Then we have Decoy Totem linked to Multiple Totem support. Multiple Totem support gives +2 to maximum totem limit to Decoy Totem. So that allows us to summon Decoy Totem in addition to our Flameblast Totems. So we can summon 4 Flameblast Totems whenever we have Shaper Shield, and then 2 Decoy Totems extra. Decoy Totems provide us extra 10% less damage taken, it taunts enemies away from us, and it gives 10% more damage dealt through Hierophant Ascendancy. So it's a huge skill, really good to use it. it would be a massive waste to not use it. And by the way, using multiple totem supports on the main skill gem would be a terrible idea, because multiple totems only gives 20% more damage instead of other supports which gives way more than 20% more. And it reduces the clear speed, because you start summoning 2 totems at a time. So you go from 4 totems to 6 totems, let's say, if you use multiple totem supports on Flameblast of Celerity. But you can only place totems in 3 different spots, right? You place 2, 2, and 2, so 6 totems. Where normally you can place 1, 1, 1, and 1, 4 totems in 4 places, so you can cover a bigger area. Again, this is important also for faster clearing breaches in the new league mechanic. It's going to be reworked breach. So decoy totems is great. You will not summon 2 decoy totems at a time though, because decoy totem has cooldown. It will not allow you to summon 2 at a time, but you can wait through the cooldown and summon second totem a bit later. You could use second wind support if you wanted to summon 2 decoy totems at a time, but I don't think we need it. I stopped using it. We don't do this. Then we have Zealotry Aura. It gives a lot of damage linked to Eternal Blessing. It makes it so that we don't reserve mana for the aura, and it gives extra aura effectiveness. Really powerful combo. Then we have Arcane Cloak. So this skill sacrifices portion of the mana and gives us defensive and damage buff based on how much mana we have, so we scale a lot of mana. We link it to automation supports. You need to activate automation on the skill bar so that the skill would start casting automatically for you. And then we have more duration and efficacy supports. Efficacy also has 25% increased skill effect duration. So these 2 support gems increase the uptime of Arcane Cloak on our character. Overall uptime is about 70% on this build. So 7 seconds out of 10 on average you have Arcane Cloak active, and it gets massive damage boost and defense boost from that. Really powerful combo. Then we have Frostblink of Winter Blast linked to faster casting. This is the travel skill that's it's basically a different version of Frostblink, which doesn't have cooldown, but it has cast time. Normal Frostblink is instant, and this one is has cast time of 0.85 seconds. But because we scale a lot of cast speed on this build for our Flameblast to clear maps fast and furious, yeah, we can actually use the skill really well. The cast time is small and it feels smooth. So good travel skill. I prefer using it instead of shield charge, like I do usually on Stoneburst totems. And we also have Assassin's Mark here, so a curse that increases crit basically against an enemy. Again, this curse scales crit, which scales both fire and lightning damage of our build. So this is the best curse to use. We also could use Elemental Weakness Curse to reduce enemies' resistance, but then it would reduce the value of this Elemental Mastery. It makes 15% chance to count enemy monster resistance as inverted. So if we reduce it, we give enemy extra resistances whenever we invert it. So we want to use Assassin's Mark specifically. Then I prefer also use normal Frostblink in addition to Frostblink and Winter Blast. We don't link it to anything though. So basically, normal Frostblink is instant skill, so it's easier to use it in order to dodge some boss abilities, some big slams, or some like projectile barrage from a pack in the middle of the map. It feels very much safer to also have normal Frostblink in addition to Frostblink and Winter Blast, because this cast is still a bit delayed, right? You still have to go through the casting animation. And then, for the first time in years, honestly, I actually try to use Golem on my build, so have Summon Flame Golem linked to mid-shield here. They buffed Golem in 3.26 patch. It not only gives 30% increased damage now, it also gives 20% increased area of effect, and even more because we get buff effect from quality. So Flame Blast benefits a lot with air effect scaling. It increases the clear speed, it feels nicer. So I thought I will give Summon Flame Golem a try. I did a practice run actually. Summon Flame Golem, even without mid-shield support, never died in campaign. Literally not a single time it died in campaign for me. But once I get to maps, it started dying pretty consistently and repeatedly, and it was kind of annoying. I was not using mid-shield still though. So I thought maybe mid-shield will save, because Golem, and it will not die as much because it will have defensive behavior. But if it's gonna be dying too frequently still, then maybe we can use cast when damage taken support, or maybe Arcanist Brands even to resummon Golem. But yeah, we'll see. So I'm gonna try to use Flame Golem, but if it's gonna be done too frequently to you, just don't use it really. Just remove it. And then last skill, we have Storm Blast Mines here. Like I say, it's optional skill here, and you don't need to detonate these mines at all. So at level 1 with 20% quality, with Arrogance support at level 2120, this mine applies an aura whenever you just throw it. It says that it gives 5% with aura effectiveness, 5% increased damage taken to enemies near the mine. And you can throw out of up to 15% of those. So this is actually a huge amount of damage you can potentially get extra to your normal damage. I don't include these damages we get from mines into full DPS scaling. Because like some people like to press less buttons, I guess. But yeah. Sometimes it feels okay to just throw some extra mines and get a lot of damage. Basically, 5% increased damage taken times 15, right, is 75% increased damage taken. So this is the same as applying another 75% shock to an enemy. This is quite a lot of damage, so our damage with full mines out will go over 10 millions. So this is the skill gems that we use in the build and support gems. So when we talk about playstyle and skill rotation, right? In maps, we just place our Flameblast Totem, Frostblink to next pack, Flameblast Totem, Frostblink, Flameblast Totem, Frostblink, Flameblast Totem. If you find a pack with rare monster or some tanky monster, you also summon Decoy Totem to the side, like a little bit away from your main totems, right? So that you could split monsters and split DPS between your totems. Like clever placement of totems is quite important. Sometimes people say that like their totems die too much, so one of the best ways to avoid that is to kind of like spread your totems around so that they don't get splashed by air effect damage. And then against tankier monsters, you also cast Assassin's Mark. Assassin's Mark is a permanent curse, so you just apply it once and it gives you a lot of damage. And you can also potentially throw some extra mines, right? So this is optional. So yeah, pretty simple playstyle. I described the skill rotation skills here in the notes section of the path of building. So you have Flameblast Totems, Assassin's Mark, Decoy Totem, and potentially throw some mines. Simple and easy playstyle. Let's talk about gear now. Let's take a look at gear. So again, I have 3 gear sets: endgame, early maps, and high investments. We're gonna take a look at endgame first because this is kind of like the main focus of the build. This is SSF and HC also friendly for software trade start too. On want, we want mana, and then we want some crit chance or crit multi-scaling. We want maybe plus level to fire skills or spell damage on prefix. And we want to use the cast speed base. Profane 1 for 10% cast speed. Again, cast speed is a premium stat for Flameblast Totems. It scales damage and clear speeds and quality of life. Really good stat to get. So we want to get also as much cast speed on suffix as we can. Shield we use, Shaper Influence shields. On Shaper Influence you can roll +1 totem, +1 number of summon totem on a prefix. This is really great stats, so we go from 3 totems to 4 totems. It gives us better coverage in maps. We can summon another totem in another place, and it gives more DPS, of course, against single targets. There is Shaper Exalted Orb, which drops from Shaper Boss. This is the best way to craft Shaper Shields through Shaper Exalted Orb. You need to first make an uninfluenced, not influenced shield with full suffixes, or you can buy that, or you can craft it with Recombinator. And then if you use a Shaper Exalted Orb on a shield that has 3 suffixes, then you will be guaranteed to make this item Shaper item and get specifically +1 totem, because +1 totem is the only Shaper influence prefix on shields. Then helmets, we just want life, mana, spell suppression. That's gonna be the case for a lot of pieces of gear, actually. Eldritch Implicits are quite impactful as well. Never forget about Eldritch Implicits. That's like a really big portion of the build. Here you can get some extra cast speed, it's neat, and physical damage taken as fire, so phys mitigation, good tankiness, body armor, life, potentially mana, suppression, and some extra resistances. That's what we want to get from our gear. Implicits as well. Frenzy Charge generation, really important. It's going to be 3 Frenzy Charges, a lot of damage and speed. We pair this Frenzy Charge generation with Charge Mastery on Tree, 100% increased charge duration. Make sure that you switch to that in endgame once you get these implicits on body armor, because initially I take a different Charge Mastery, the one that gives increased damage based on how many charges you have. But once you craft this body armor implicits, you want to get charge duration for sure. And physical damage taken is elemental, so physical damage mitigation. By the way, the gear type that we want to use is generally dexterity plus energy shield, or like intelligence plus dex. I mean, evasion plus energy shields, dex int items. The reason for that is that on intelligence items, you can roll mana naturally. And on dexterity items, you can roll suppression. So because we want both mana for Arcane Cloak and Might of Matter and suppression for this fed defensive layer, we want such items, right? So evasion plus energy shields. On gloves, we have mana, life, suppression, resist. Implicit, chance to nerf enemies for 4 seconds on hits. Nice damage layer. We want to have it. And so this is also Searing Exarch and Eater of Force implicits, right? So the way you craft those implicits is by applying Eldritch Echores and Eldritch Embers to your items. So here, every item, that, implicit that I roll uses lesser currency, lesser Echores, and lesser Embers. Fire Exposure. So this only scales fire portion of the damage, but yeah, this seems to be one of the best implicits we can get on gloves. Or if you don't have enough spell suppression, instead of fire exposure, you can get 5+ spell suppression. And that's gonna be just fine. Boots, life, mana, movement speed, suppression, resistances, Eldritch implicits. Based on endurance shards, we have a lot of endurance shards, so these are effective. Amulets, cast speed, crit multi, right? Amulet is an unusual piece of gear where you can get these stats. We want a lot of cast speed, so you can get some stats here. So yeah, life mana is always Annoyance, Vigor. On a non-high investment version of the gear, we Annoyance Vigor. It gives us +1 maximum endurance charge. We combine +1 maximum endurance charge here and +1 maximum endurance charge over here with +1 minimum endurance charge that we benchcraft on our rings. So this way we have 4 endurance charges from Ascendancy permanently, because it's minimum endurance charges, and we can have +2 to maximum and to minimum, and this way we can have 6 permanent endurance charges, extremely tanky defensive layer, super good. But yeah, so we have different annoyance on high investment version of the gear. We're gonna check it out later. Rings, you can also roll cast speed here. Life, mana, resist. Pretty simple. Belt, life, mana, resist. Jewel, life, mana, you can have resist, you can have crit when you haven't dealt crit recently. And this is gonna be permanent crit because you never crit, it's your totems who crit. So you don't crit. The only way for you to crit is to actually, if you Frost Blink or Wrench Blast on enemy, and you crit with this skill, but yeah, generally you don't really crit much against bosses, that is. I guess against, like during mapping, because you Frostblink a lot, you not proc this crits too much. And then we have Cluster Jewel, so I was already talking about that. It's a totem jewel when it says like on Sleepless Sentries. It's pretty easy to craft this Cluster Jewel. You just need to Reforge Attack on Harvest Bench. So Reforge Attack guarantees to give you Ancestral Echo, so you just spam Reforge Attack until you get Ancestral Echo and Sleepless Sentries in addition to that. And then other jewels, some life, some mana, some crit multi, some resistances, maybe some stats if you need it, dexterity, strength. That's what we get. So how do I craft my gear usually, right? Different crafting methods for different pieces of gear. But in SSF, I like starting farming with Expedition, because Expedition provides you Tujen currency, which gives a lot of alterations. Alterations are good for crafting with Recombinator. Recombinator craft is kind of like endgame crafts, where you can craft the best gear. Most of the gear here on SSF HC run, I crafted with Recombinators. For example, like my pretty good wands, good gloves with a lot of life, mana, suppression, dexterity. My rings, life, mana, big cast speed, resist. So all of that I crafted SSF. It's just Recombinator. It's a powerful mechanic. Also, while you farm Expedition for Tujen, you also get a Rogue currency. Rogue Allows you to just craft also good gear with suppression. Mostly gear, like not really weapon. Weapon is better to craft with essences, specifically spell damage essences, or cast speed essences, or flat damage to spells essences. There is a lot of different essences that work pretty well for weapons. So yeah, farming essences for weapon, farming rock for gear pieces like body armor, helmet, gloves, boots. For rings, we want to either craft again with Recombinator or as an end game craft, or early craft we want to do with Harvest. Harvest has a blue juice reforged caster modifier. Reforged caster guarantees to get cast speed on rings, so you just spam reforged caster until you get high cast speeds and also a couple of other good modifiers. So yeah, most of the gear I craft like that, with combining like 3 different crafting mechanics, right? Again, on trades, you can go for, I guess, you can just buy gear on trades or do some more advanced crafting mechanics, but even SF versions work. Now let's talk about leveling. So we're gonna start with leveling trees. In my PB, I have leveling trees over here, so you can just click and you can see the progression. You can even scroll wheel through trees like that. And you can see what passives do I take in what order. Pretty easy to follow. You can also see the order of Ascendancy. I can see like the first Ascendancy I take here around level 32 usually. So it's going to be this one, Pursuit of Faith. Then second Ascendancy would take Ritual of Awakening. So yeah, around level 40 we switch to Flameblast Totems. We switch a little bit later so that it would feel smoother, because on League Start we might not be able to buy Flameblast of Celerity skill gem, the transfigured version of Flameblast. So I will be leveling with normal Flameblast. Normal Flameblast works amazingly well for campaign, but it still can feel a little slow before you get enough cast speed. So first I take quite a lot of cast speeds and area of effect on tree. We get cast speed over here, we get cast speed, a little bit of cast speed here, air effect here, we get a lot of cast speeds in these nodes, and some cast speed here and here. So yeah, once we get all that, it's around level 40 usually, is when we can safely switch to Flameblast Totems and it will feel good. Initially we'll level with Holy Flame Totems. We're gonna look at the leveling skill gems a bit later. But yeah, so here we're progressing. At around level 67, as you can see, I start taking mana nodes and Mind of a Matter. So it's closer to the end of the campaign already, where we're gonna be start switching to Mind of Matter. So when stop reserving mana and we start using our Arcane Cloak skill gem and gets a lot of flat damage from that. And then pay attention that at level 68 there is quite a big swap actually on tree. So we don't swap any nodes before that. By the way, I forgot to mention that initially we also take some just fire damage on tree, because again, initially we don't use Arcane Cloak, we don't go with mana scaling, so taking fire damage is a good idea. There's a lot of damage over here. We take fire damage here as well initially, so that works really well for campaign run. Campaign run, I did a practice run yesterday and it felt super strong. So yeah, as you can see, here we're gonna swap quite a lot of passives. Look at this, boom, 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 boom. We're swapping a lot of passives because we complete 3rd Labyrinth around this level. And we get our permanent power charges from that. So this is a good opportunity to swap to crit. So we remove a lot of non-crit nodes and we spec into crit nodes here, here, here. We swap some gems around as well. We're gonna take a look at this later. We swap nodes here. So yeah, carefully swap at this level. There's quite a lot of passives to respec. It's, in fact, it's 25 points to respec, 25. In campaign, we usually get about like 15-20 respec points for free from quests. And the rest of the refunds you can do with gold, right? It's not going to take that much gold at all to respec just like 5-10 passives. So it's going to feel good. And then, yeah, we scale some extra crits, we scale some extra area effects, some extra... Arcane Surge effectiveness for our Arcane Blessing. We get 4th Ascendancy, Arcane Blessing for more damage. So these are the leveling trees. Yeah, should be pretty easy to follow. I take jewel slots later around level 90, because usually it's hard to have good jewels initially, like during your first day Atlas progression. So we take jewels later. And spell suppression we take the last, because we only really need spell suppression by the time we get to tier 16 maps. So around level 90, I guess it's nice to get it. Or onwards, level 90 onwards. So that's it for leveling trees. By the way, bandit choice is kill all. We want to kill all, but usually on the league start, if that's your first build of the league, on the first day, I feel like it's nicer to go for Alira. We help Alira, we get 15% elemental resistances from her. It feels really impactful initially. And then later on, you can respec your bandit choice from Alira to kill all by doing the vendor recipe. You need to sell 20 regret orbs and an amulet, like Onyx amulet. You can Google that, it's pretty easy to do that. So that's the bandit choice. Now let's talk about leveling skills. You can follow leveling skill progression here in Path of Building in skills. So this is final gem setup, but leveling skill is here. So we start with Rolling Magma. I used to use in the past Stormblast Mine, and actually really like Stormblast Mines, but I get a lot of comments before, like in previous builds, that people don't like Stormblast Mines and people really like Rolling Magma, so I was like, okay, we're gonna use Rolling Magma, fine. It's a good skill, I mean, it also feels really good. So from level 2 to 16 we use Rolling Magma with Elemental Proliferation. Yeah, then from level 4 we can start using Holy Flame Totem, linked to Infused Channeling, really good support for that. We combine Holy Flame Totem with Flame Wall, linked to Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge just gives us Arcane Surge buff, which gives cast speed and mana regen. So Flame Wall you want to place right in front of your Holy Flame Totems, and this skill will give extra flat damage to projectiles of the Flame Totem. It will give extra damage to your Rolling Magma that you shoot through the Flame Wall as well. Frostblink, the travel skill until level 10. At level 10 we're gonna swap to Flame Dash. You can also use Steel Skin as a protection skill for the campaign. I usually don't even do this, even on hardcore. I kind of skip it, but again, that's optional. You can consider using Steel Skin if you want to. At level 8 to Holy Flame Totem, we're gonna add added fire damage support. We don't use combustion supports because combustion only scales the fire portion of the damage. But at this stage, we do quite a lot of physical damage still with Holy Flame Totems. So Flame Dash, yeah, Vitality also, Aura you can use for a little bit for 6 levels. I usually just don't even use it, but it could help you killing the first act boss, Merveil. At level 16 we stop using Vitality and we use Herald of Ash and Herald of Purity. Don't forget to get it. It's actually a lot of damage to Holy Flame Totems because they convert physical to fire, so getting more physical and more fire is really powerful. And also at level 16 you can use the Wave of Conviction Mines. At this level this is really big deal. They will apply fire exposure 15%, and they can also do quite a lot of damage when you detonate them. So yeah, recommended to use it as early as possible. At level 18 you get access to physical to lightning support, and so as soon as you will get a full link, which usually happens around level 25 honestly, but I paused it here because level 8 requirements anyway. I think it's really good to use physical to lightning support, because then we're gonna do only elemental damage and not only physical, because initially we don't go crit. Initially we progress with elemental overload, keystone, and it gives you more elemental damage specifically. So yeah, converting into elemental is a good idea in my mind. At level 24 you can start using Elemental Weakness Curse until level 40. Yeah, and Elemental Weakness will reduce both fire and lightning damage, so it's gonna be nice. At level 28, this is something new, by the way. We can stop using Wave of Conviction Mines and start using Pyroclast Mine. In patch 3.27, they changed Pyroclast Mines. It will not give flat damage anymore as an aura. It will give an exposure aura. So basically you throw it and you don't even detonate it. It will immediately apply an aura to an enemy, a debuff aura that applies fire exposure. So yeah, we apply exposure through that instead of Wave Conviction Mines now. At level 34 you can start using Flame Golem Gem. Again, it was buffed, it also gives increased air effect now, not only damage. And in campaign, Flame Golem never died in my experience, so this is really good to use. Later in maps maybe it could be problematic, but Flame Golem for campaign feels good. Even without mid shields, my Golem never dies in campaign, so if you don't have sockets, just don't use mid shields. Decoy Totems at level 38, you can start using it because you get access to multiple totem supports. So we can summon Decoy Totems in addition to our damaging totems, not instead of one of them, because we get +2 maximum limit to Decoy Totems. You will not summon 2 Decoy Totems at a time because Decoy Totem has cooldown, but you can summon them one after another one. And also, if you have empty sockets, you can consider using Flamewood supports so that Decoy Totems will also do a little bit of extra damage. It feels like okay to use it. I personally never really do this though. And at level 40, like I mentioned, when we were looking at the level in trees, we are swapping to Flameblast Totems because we get enough cast speed and area effect from tree already for that to feel good enough. Flameblast, if you have access to Flameblast of Celerity, you want to use Flameblast of Celerity as soon as you can. But I don't want to farm first lap on the league start in SSF. I'd rather farm third lap, and Flameblast is just great for leveling through the campaign anyway. So yeah, we can do normal Flameblast. We'll link to Spell Totem faster casting support for some extra cast speed for Flameblast to feel even smoother and to fuse channeling. So make sure to not forget to pre-level your Spell Totem support, because initially we use Holy Flame Totem, and once you get to level 40, your Spell Totem support might be underleveled if you just get it from vendors. So it's a good idea to pre-buy that preemptively and put it leveling in your weapon swap, so that whenever you swap, your Spell Totem will be high level and totems will not die then, right? Because if Spell Totem support is too low level, totems have like no life and they will just die insta. And Flameblast skill gem also not a bad idea to pre-level it before you swap to this, because otherwise you're not gonna have enough damage. So at the same time, at level 40, we switch our Elemental Weakness curse to Flammability. Not a bad idea to also link it to Arcane Surge to have a good uptime of Arcane Surge debuff. At this level, we can use Spire-class Mines with Arrogance support as well. Mainly because we're gonna reserve more mana potentially. So we can't use Heralds of Ash and Purity anymore for Flammability, for Flameblast scaling. So Anger Aura works way better for damage at this level. And you can also consider using Summon Skidobots for extra shock and chill on enemies, but it will reserve 85% of your mana. So it could be problematic theoretically. And if you have mana issues, just don't use Skidobots then, it's optional. Flameblast Totems have very small mana costs, because it's a channeling skill. The initial mana cost is 4 mana only, so with Spell Totem it will cost like about 7 mana or whatever. Really low mana cost. So the biggest mana cost is going to be Flammability, it's like 32 mana. But yeah, so Spire-class Mines we want to link to Arrogance support, because it will actually give aura effectiveness, and I assume that aura effectiveness will scale the exposure that you apply from the Spire-class Mine new aura for exposure. And also eventually we will have to use Arrogance on Spire-class Mine, otherwise we will not be able to throw mines once we'll start using Eternal Blessing support. Eternal Blessing disables other auras that reserve mana, so we'll have to reserve specifically life, because Spire-class Mine is an aura. So yeah, we use Anger Aura, potentially Skidobots if you have no problems with mana. And yeah, all the way to level 67, where we switch to Mind over Matter, and we get quite a lot of mana from Tree. At this level, we stop reserving our mana with Anger and Skidobots. We get Zealotry linked to Eternal Blessing, it doesn't reserve mana, right? We use Arcane Cloak, linked to Automation, more duration, efficacy. It gives a lot of flat lightning damage based on mana that you spent with Arcane Cloak. At level 68, once we complete third lap, we switch to Crit on passive tree, and we start using Assassin's Mark instead of Flammability as a curse. And yeah, so potentially like we switch the support gems. This is in order of importance. You might not have 5 link at this level, so you go Flameblast of Celerity, Spell Totem, faster casting, critical strike supports, and then critical damage. And then Infused Channeling, if you have a 6 link. And then, once you get Elemental Penetration support, you switch faster casting to Elemental Penetration. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about leveling gems. Let me see my notes. Yeah, I think we talked about everything. So leveling gear, small notes about that is for leveling, we want to dual wield 2 wands. This will allow us to have extra cast speed. And again, cast speed feels really nice, especially for the normal version of Flameblast. non-celerity version of Flameblast. So cast speed is going to be premium stats to have, and eventually, once we get Shaper Influence Shield with +1 Totem roll donates, we switch to Totem, but yeah, for leveling, we dual wield 2 ones. And also for trades, for those who start on trades, you can find here in the notes section, for example, for leveling, you can use some unique items that are pretty damn powerful. Replica Prism Weave Belt, Sacrificial Heart Amulet, Thrill Steel Helmet gives onslaught. Other items give just a lot of flat damage to spells. Replica Thessalius Sign Rings or normal Thessalius Sign if Replica is too expensive. But yeah, so on a league start it's gonna be hard to have specifically Replica uniques because they are farmed from Heist. And Nycta's Lantern Scepter, also really nice for leveling. Powerful unique for campaign and early maps even. Now let's take a look at the high investment version of this build. Like I mentioned before, don't forget there is different loadouts. You can choose them here and you can click high investment. So this is going to be juicy softcore trait version of the build. As you can see, full DPS goes from 6 millions to almost 24 millions, so we'll almost quadruple the damage, and this is even without Incinerate Venting. Incinerate Venting will be like 30 millions plus DPS. The skills we use are pretty much the same, but we use different items and slightly different tree where it gets additional jewel slots here and here. So yeah, we want to use Ashes of the Stars is just really nice amulet. It gives +1 skill level and quality. Quality is good on Flameblast of Celerity. It's also good on Decoy Totem. It's also good on Arcane Cloak. So very beneficial amulet to use. We want to go with a different annoyance, Wood, Stone, and Spell. It's like a hidden annoyance. It's quite expensive in terms of oils that you need to use for it. But yeah, for a high investment version of the build, so this one gives a huge amount of damage through Arcane Surge effectiveness. 10% Arcane Surge effectiveness per summoned totem, so it gets 60% overall. Then Mark of the Shaper, you might recognize this setup from Stoneburst Totems. I just really like this ring. It gives a lot of spell damage, flat damage spells. But it requires your other ring to be Elder Influence ring, so make sure that your second ring is Elder Influence. And then quite a lot of unique jewels. Unnatural Instinct is super amazing for Flameblast Totems in this slot. It makes it so that unallocated small nodes give you their benefits, so you get a lot of mana from here, you get a lot of air effect from here, you get huge amount of cast speed from here, some extra life, regen, and well yeah, that's about it. Actually, skill effect duration improves your Arcane Cloak uptime even further. So really nice jewel to use. Watcher's Eye with modifiers to Zealotry can give a lot of damage. We use Zealotry Aura. So double Zealotry Watcher's Eye is pretty huge too. And Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flash, and actually we just want to use another Harfant ability, Divine Guidance. Harfant is that good. Like this node also gives a nice defensive layer and huge damage boost too. So yeah, that's the unique items we use. The rest of the item is just way better crafted rare items. You can have quite a lot of damage on the shield, by the way. Spell damage, crit chance for spells. But yeah, so this is the unique items. Skills tree is almost the same, this version of the build. So I think that's most of the stuff I wanted to share about the builds. Holy hell, this is a long video, over 1 hour. What the hell? Oh well. Every time I want to make like a shorter, faster video, and every time I fail. Anyway, so I wanted to also mention that there is a new website, or like semi-new, it's Poe-Snipe. Let me show it. Let me show it real quick. Here it is, right? So on this website, poe-snipe.com, you can click streamers here at the top, and you can, for example, type Taddy here. So my channel is @Intel2 from Twitch. And here you will be able to see my latest characters. And again, started recording from Mercenaries and Caesar and Gauntlet 2. So my new character that I plan to league start, Flameblast of Celerity Totems and HCSSF 3.27 league. So you will be able, if you want to follow my progression on this website. You just click on this new character that should appear somewhere here. And you can actually see progression in such a good way. If it's gonna load, okay, here it is. So basically, here, you can see the progression of my tree, progression of my gear, everything that I do, my skill gems here, everything, you can basically spy on me so easily now. Wow, that's really scary. This is amazing website. So yeah, if you're interested in my character progression, you will be able to follow that on this website. Make sure to check it out. If I will not forget, actually, maybe we'll link my Poe-Snipe character link in the video description as well. And I think we can wrap it up. Wrap it up, guys. Wrap it up. It's over 1 hour. Jesus Christ. So yeah, have a nice league start. Enjoy the breach farming mechanic. Hopefully you will enjoy this build as much as I do. I played it a lot in Settlers, like I said. Super successful build. I'm loving it. Great for league starting especially. Campaign is easy peasy. HC SSF friendly too. Good on softcore trades. So yeah, let me know what do you think about the builds, and 1 hour video as well for the build guides. And take care of your totems, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.